Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Hive. Be in the know stories about Medina City Schools. I'm Amy Busby, Director of Community Relations for Medina City Schools, and your host for this episode. This podcast is a space where we'll dive into stories, successes, and challenges that make Medina City Schools a special place to learn and grow. We'll bring you new episodes at least once a month, packed with updates, celebrations, and conversations that matter to our students, staff, and community. Today's episode highlights something we're incredibly proud of, the thoughtful, responsive work happening in our kindergarten classrooms at Canavan Elementary. We're talking about early language development, why it matters, and how a team of educators came together to meet students exactly where they are. Joining me today are Canavan's Principal Gretchen Newton, Intervention Specialist Katie Allen, and Kindergarten Teacher Nicole Peppeard. Welcome.
Hi, thanks for having us.
Thanks for being here. So, thank you all for being here and willing to share the story. I know that recently you were at a board meeting and presented the same information. So now this is another really great opportunity for our community to understand exactly what's happening at Canavan. So Gretchen, let's start with the big picture. When this kindergarten class arrived, what did you notice early on that told you something different was needed?
Well, when we looked closely at our data, a few things stood out right away. 82% of our kindergarten students had attended preschool, which is typically a strong indicator of readiness. But this group of students was born during the pandemic, which disrupted a critical period for early language development. Factors like social interaction and consistent learning environments were all affected. Our speech and language screener showed significant challenges with language concepts and a clear need for remediation. In addition, we welcomed several new English learners with very little English proficiency into this kindergarten group. Together, that data helped us realize that intervention was needed and needed quickly.
Yeah, and it's, certainly learning that early on is really important, especially at that young age.
And our speech and language pathologist, Catherine, she was on it. She got those screeners done within the first couple of weeks kindergartners attended. So we really were able to see that this was a need we had to address.
Yeah, that's awesome. So let's talk a little bit about why language matters. And Nicole, from your perspective, why are language concepts so critical at the kindergarten level?
Language really is the foundation for everything students do in school. Skills such as vocabulary, sentence structure, comprehension, answering WH questions like what, where, when, why, and verbal expression are essential building blocks of academic success. When students have gaps in these areas, it shows up in many ways, like difficulty following multi-step directions, trouble expressing their needs clearly, and challenges engaging fully in classroom activities. Without targeted support, these gaps can lead to reading difficulties, social challenges, and ongoing academic struggles. Addressing language early helps prevent that cascade from happening.
So let's talk a little bit about Tier 1 classroom strategies that you're using. And one thing that really stands out is that language wasn't treated as something extra in the program that you launched. Nicole, what did that look like in your classroom?
So we focused on embedding language throughout the entire day. One of our key strategies was rich conversations. We intentionally engaged students in meaningful dialogue and modeled asking and answering questions daily during our morning meetings. Over time, we shifted from teacher-led questions to student-led questions, which really helped students build confidence using their language. We also used interactive read-alouds. These were whole class engaging texts with students where they had opportunities to predict, discuss, and explore vocabulary. We adjusted our focus based on the specific language needs in each of our classrooms. So we have 3 classrooms, so each of us had a little difference in the specific skills that our students needed, so we would change that as accordingly to that. And finally, purposeful play was really huge. We created rich play environments, things like stores or farming scenarios. They went along with our CKLA knowledge units that we were doing at the time, where students can practice language naturally in an authentic context.
So when you presented at the board meeting, you had a little video of the purposeful play, and
Yes.
and I thought that was a really great way for them to kind of express what they're learning.
Right, and it was neat to see them use their vocabulary that they'd learned them in the lessons, but then it came out naturally when they were playing together, using a lot of those we were doing the farm unit, and you could see them playing with the farm toys and using those vocabulary words on their own. So.
Right, so that, for you as the kindergarten teacher, that's very, very encouraging.
Yes.
Yeah. So as part of our program today, I'm going to share a little excerpt from that video just to give people an idea of exactly the conversation that was
very
occurring at that time.
developmentally appropriate to do through play. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Then the medium goat went across the bridge, and the troll said, "Who's that trying over my bridge?" Then the big goat went on the bridge, and he said, "Try." Then the troll said, "Who's that trying over my bridge?" And the big billy goat knocked the troll off the bridge, and then he got his yummy grass. Once upon a time, there was a little chicken. She was going on a walk, and soon later, she came under a tree, and an acorn fell on her head, and she saw the sky was falling, so she went to go tell the king. And then she met Penny. Penny, the sky is falling. How do you know? A piece of it fell on my forehead. Then let us go to the key. And she kept on walking until she met Lucy, the sky is falling. How do you know? A piece of it fell on my forehead. Then let us go to the key. And she kept on walking.
Small group and intervention support is, I would say, maybe a key component to the success of this program. And Katie, can you share how intervention and small group instruction have supported this work?
Sure. So we used our WIN time, WIN, which stands for What I Need. This is where kids get placed in specific groups strategically based on where they are at and what their next step in moving forward in development for language is. Reading intervention teachers pulled students to work on very targeted skills that we identified through the initial screening at the beginning of the year from our speech and language pathologist. And this allowed us to have more intensive small group support with students that may have been overshadowed in a larger classroom and needed a quieter, smaller place to really be able to feel comfortable. So it was really an important piece of collaboration here at our school. Our speech and language pathologist worked very closely with myself and Nick Caramelli, the other reading intervention teacher here, so that our language lessons could be implemented consistently between our two groups. And additionally, our small groups, we would focus on skills such as sentence formulation, prepositions, category building, sentence repetition, storytelling, those WH questions that Nikki talked about, and having receptive and expressive conversations that within our own small group. So this alignment ensured that students were practicing the same language skills across both settings.
So let's talk about deeper learning and the spotlight stories that kind of come alive when our students are allowed to learn in that manner. So one of the strategies that was highlighted as having the greatest impact was the Stories Come Alive project. And Gretchen, if you could walk us through how that worked.
Absolutely. So this project was designed using the Deeper Learning Design Guide, And it was launched with a really cool real-world problem that the Medina County District Library actually helped us connect on. We had a library record a video where she challenged the students to help her with, no one wants to come in and read our books anymore. What can you do to make these stories come alive? And the students discussed and shared ideas on how to bring stories to life for our community and solve that real problem that the librarian posed. It immediately strengthened oral language and communication skills. Engagement was really high. It was just a great opportunity for our students to explore the language and not just a typical Tier 1 curriculum. So we partnered with 5th grade students to kind of launch the unit. The 5th grade students helped us build background knowledge around nursery rhymes. They acted out nursery rhymes for them. We have a phenomenal theater program at Canavan, and they have costumes that they put on to act out Humpty Dumpty, Jack and Jill, and the kindergartners got to see these stories come to life thanks to our 5th graders. That was part of our launch. It was really exciting for them to see other students even help them with this deeper learning unit.
Right, and they're really kind of mentors.
Exactly.
And creating that partnership too with the district library is kind of key to that too. So Nikki, if you could maybe add to that, from a student's perspective.
Well, and we had also, along with that unit, they had practiced retelling stories that we had read throughout class, and we had read many stories, so they had a lot of practice with retelling. And then students were given voice and choice in how they brought their stories to life. Ideas included puppets, and they could create their own puppets, acting out the stories. They could make game boards as they were retelling these stories. They also chose which story they wanted to present. We read a whole variety, and they got to choose which was their favorite story to do. And as they worked in groups, they collaborated and communicated constantly. And this wasn't just a project at the end of the unit. It was something we revisited throughout instruction, which allowed students to expand their sentences and vocabulary each time they retold their story. And they also got really good at providing feedback to one another. And that's such an important skill that we see all the way down the line and in our competencies. So it was great to see them, even as kindergartners at our basic level, being able to do such a good job with that.
Yeah, and I always say every time I do one of these and we talk about students presenting to a group of people, that it's amazing to me that they are able to do that. Mm-hmm. I would say when I was in elementary school, there would have been absolutely no way I would have been able to get up in front of a group of people and present.
And I think explicitly teaching each of those competencies and what it means, what it looks like, and giving them that modeled support, and they practice it all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, that's awesome. Then Katie, if you want to maybe share a little bit about your perspective.
I was going to say that the students presented their projects, and they recorded these videos to share back with the library. We took these stories as a final step and used that oral language to make it a meaningful, authentic way of bringing back that question that the library initially asked. And so we created those videos as QR codes, so anyone that visits the library has the opportunity to scan one of those and see the kids take their stories to a whole nother level.
So results and impacts of this project. So Gretchen, when you reflect on the results, what stands out most?
Well, we were really proud of the growth that we saw in such a short time. Mrs. Allen went back through and gave that same speech screener again to all of our students that were in our intervention groups. And what we wanted to see was this work impactful? Was it effective for students? And what we got to see was there was really clear grade level growth from August to November. And as much as we were excited to see the data improve, we were also really proud of the confidence that students gained after being taught and modeled how to be collaborators, problem solvers, respectful citizens, and communicators. We saw that these students were able to take all of those explicitly taught skills and really do this on their own, which when you think of kindergartners in November, that's still pretty early in the year and something that we were really excited to see be so impactful for them. And the other thing that I feel like our team was very cognizant of in this process was this wasn't an add-on. This wasn't something that we just stuck in for 10 minutes a day. This was something that we really tried to embed every day into our Tier 1 instruction, into our small group time. And this just went, this took the district initiatives that we really believe in and are proud of, like our Portrait of a Bee competencies and deeper learning. And we use this to really address one of the biggest needs that we saw in kindergarten.
Yeah, and those results are really impressive, considering that it wasn't even, the first half of the school year wasn't even coming to a close. So that's great work for you guys. Okay, before we wrap up, would each of you like to share one thing you'd like families, educators, or community members to understand about supporting language development? Vicki, we'll start with you.
I think language development works best when it's embedded naturally throughout the day and tied to meaningful experiences, getting that developmentally appropriate based on their age things in there. I think that was really beneficial.
Yeah, Katie.
I would say that none of this would have been able to happen if we didn't have the huge collaboration in this building, from different pieces to the classroom teacher, to intervention teachers, the speech teacher, even having the principal be a part of this. All of those people working together really helped the students grow faster and more confidently in this language process.
Yeah, and Gretchen.
I would say that early intervention matters. Kindergarten is the perfect time to build strong language foundations that support student long-term success. We know intervention minutes in kindergarten, first grade are way more impactful than waiting until third and fourth grade to get it in. So early intervention is key.
Right, and that kind of goes back to what we talked to initially is, if you wait, they struggle not only as they move through elementary school, but later on in their educational journey. So yeah, this is really, really important work, and I thank you all for being here today to share this work and for the care and intention you bring to your students every day. To our listeners, we're proud to share the incredible work happening in our schools and hope this conversation highlights the power of early language development in helping children find their voices. We'll talk with you next month with more stories, updates, and conversations. Until then, stay curious and stay connected. This is The Hive, Being in the Know, stories about Medina City Schools.